So this is Ijahé Russell, and I'm here today to share my testimony, tell my story and how I came to Christ. I just want to start by saying that I won't be using any names during this testimony, just to protect everyone mentioned. It's very scary to be vulnerable and to share every aspect of my story that led me to Christ, but I feel that it's needed. It's time. God has called me to share this testimony, and I know there is such power in sharing a testimony, and that it dispels evil and darkness. So I guess I'll start from the beginning. I'll start with my youth years. So I was born in England, Nottingham. That's where my parents met. My mom is French. My dad is Jamaican. They met in England quite soon, and quite soon they had us. I remember having a good childhood. I can say that regarding to any Christian influences, it was very subtle. Both my parents have been baptized, but they did make a conscious decision to not baptize us, to give us the decision in getting baptized or not. And so, yeah, they didn't have any very strong Christian morals, but I can say there were some Christian influences growing up. I remember our dad would read us stories from the Bible, so we would be familiar with a few, popular stories. And he would sing songs to us. I remember one specific song, "The Lion of Judah, who will break every chain." And I just loved this song when I was a child, because I would just remember and picture this big, majestic lion breaking every chain. But what I didn't know is that this song is about Jesus. Jesus is the Lion of Judah. I didn't know that as a child, but I just loved the song. So there were some small, subtle influences, but they were not predominant in my childhood. I have a twin sister. We are very close. I also see now, growing up and, just experiencing life, that I do really see that being a twin is a blessing. It's a true blessing. And it's just it's very nice to be able to share your most important and biggest memories with your twin. And all of my, experiences and going through life, and also like going through difficult moments, my twin sister was always there, and she's really my rock. So I can say that that's really been a blessing. I have notes. There's a lot to cover. I don't want to miss anything important, so I sometimes will glance to the left, just checking if I have everything in there. So if I just think about any other Christian influences that I had as a child, I would say my grandmother was also a big influence in that area. She was a very Christian woman of faith, and she did instill some Christian values. I remember she would have pictures and verses and portraits of Jesus in her house, and she would talk about Jesus a lot. And there was one specific portrait in the living room that I remember, and it's still there to this day. It's still there, and it's a portrait of Jesus knocking on the door, and it says on the bottom, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock." And for some reason, as a child, this always had a big impact on me, and I always there was something very, very mystical about the whole portrait, and I really did already have a sense that this Jesus was a very important figure, but I just didn't know who he was. And so that's what I can say about, early on Christian influences. So me and my sister, we do come from I don't like the term, but the term is a broken family. So it means that our parents were not together officially. And so my dad was around. He was there, and in where he could, he would provide, and where he could make time and be there, he would be there. But the main our mother was the main caretaker, and she provided for us. She raised us. And so this was not easy growing up. I mean, we did see that our parents did not always see eye to eye. There were a lot of discussions, there were fights. So this was not easy for my sister and I to be witnesses of. I always remember thinking as a child, oh, I wish that my parents could just get along with. And I always dreamt and prayed and hoped that my parents would just get back together and just fix things. But it never really, the relationship never really lasted. So I can't really say when they really like officially split up, because obviously my dad was always involved in our lives. So I can't really say when they officially broke up, because it was an on and off relationship. So we would see him for often during the weekends. And when we were younger, he would also, some days in the week, he would stay at the house and he would take us to school. So yeah, again, where he could, he really would do his best. And I also just remember that our dad really did instill some very important morals, and he really disciplined us really well. So, he was very stern. And as a child, I guess, it's not always easy to have a stern parent, but now looking back, I'm so grateful, because I remember he would always encourage us to always use our creative mind and always make sure that we're not bored, because boredom does kind of like birth ideas of doing things that are just not beneficial. Nothing good comes from boredom. So I remember that whenever I would say that I'm bored, he would say, you can't be bored. There's so much to do in life. You can read, you can write, you can draw, you can paint, there's so much you can do. And I would never forget that he said that at a very early age. And that stuck by me, and I've always applied that to life. Whenever I feel bored, I always try and think, okay, what can I do with my creative mind? What can I create? How can I express myself? So for that, I am very grateful. I always try to look on the positive side. I do have a father, and he's still very present in my life. He might not have been as present as I needed him to be as a child. I might have, struggled with his absence in many moments growing up as a teenager as well. But I can say now that I do have a father, and he is in my life, and he did really make an effort. And both of my parents just did their ultimate best. And for that, I'm very grateful. So yeah, growing up was not easy. We come from a broken family. So our mom took on multiple roles, had to, work different jobs. She had to work full time. And this also meant that we needed nannies, because our dad was not always around and my mom was working full time. So that meant that after school, we would usually be picked up by a nanny, and then we would spend the majority of the afternoon until evening with them. And then our mom would pick us up in the evening to take us home. So, and this was a structure that started from the age of, I would say 6, 7, until the age of 11, 12. So from 6 to about 12 years old, me and my sister had nannies. And looking back, and I can say that this was not always easy. I did really struggle with this, because I just found it hard, spending a lot of my time with someone that I actually did not know. And we went through a lot of nannies. I think we had in those from 6 to 11, in those years, I think we had about 5 different nannies. So yeah, this had a big impact, and I did not always find it easy, but I did really see the bigger picture. I did understand that, our mom was doing her utmost best, and she was just providing, and she was just doing the best that she could do. So yeah. I also just want to share one incident with the first nanny when I was 6. This was a mother that my mom got to know at the school. So she also has sons at the same school that we attended, the same primary school that we attended. And this lady had 5 sons, of which the youngest son was about 1 year older than we were. So that was a good friend that we could play with after school. And so, yeah, that was our first nanny, and she was a wonderful lady. She was so sweet. And I remember she was actually a Christian lady that memory just came back in, and I remember now. We will watch The Prince of Egypt, and me and my sister loved that movie. It just really made a big impact. And that's funny that I remember that now, that was actually a Christian lady. She had about 4 or 5 sons, as I can remember. It was a very long time ago. So she was a very nice lady, and it was a good time for what I remember. We would have pancakes, we'd watch movies, we would go outside, and so it did feel like we had an extended family. It wasn't just me and my sister, it was me and my sister and then the brothers that we would hang out with and play on the PlayStation and all sorts of things. So it was a good time that we actually had. Unfortunately, there was one incident where I was alone with one of the older sons. I think he must have been around 18, 19, maybe even 20. And I was molested by him. And I remember it very clearly, even though I was very young. And all I can remember is that I knew in that instant, in that moment, that it was wrong. But as a 6-year-old, I just did not know how to process that, how to verbalize that, how to deal with that. So in that moment, I just froze. And after it was done, I think I ran into the other room and continued like nothing ever happened. And I've carried this alone with myself for many, many years. I confessed and told my mother this when I was 18. So all those years I've kept this to myself. And I think the reason why is because I didn't have, at that time when it happened at 6 years old, I didn't have the capacity or the emotional maturity to verbalize what happened. And so I think I just put it way back in my memory and tried to like block it out and just didn't want to think about it anymore. And I think I didn't really realize until I became a teenager and an adolescent and a young woman what actually that impact it had on my life and how that influenced me a lot. But I'll get to that later on. I longed for the approval of my father, and I really longed for his love. I really longed for his presence, and I just always felt like he wasn't there as much as I would have liked him to be there. And I think this also created this dynamic where I was always trying to please him, both my parents. So I would also always excel in school. We would always get very good grades. Anything we did, we would try to excel. I think it was also just in order for us to get our parents' attention, and show them that we are good children, and we just want their approval and their praises. I remember also one incident where we were at our dad's house for the weekend. We were having pancakes, and it was just a good morning. And I remember it seemed very innocent then, and it in a way it was, but I think I was around, I must have been 12 or 13, and it was an incident where we were having pancakes, and I had 3 pancakes, my sister had 2 pancakes, and my dad made a remark saying, well, Ijahé, that 3 pancakes, that's a lot. Be careful, something in that area. And it may sound very small, but as a 12, 13-year-old, very insecure about her body and already going through all these changes as a teenager, I took that remark as, oh, he thinks I'm eating too much, he thinks I'm too big, and that kind of instilled thoughts in me, and I started to believe those thoughts. You're too big, you need to lose weight, you're not pretty. And this really kind of also had a big impact on my self-worth, actually. So, and I think in combination with being a twin, us growing up, we had a lot of situations where twins are just compared all the time. It's just something that people do when they see twins. It's always the discussion of, oh, who's the smart one, who's the funnier one, who's the naughty one, who's the taller one, who's the bigger one, the more obvious similarities and differences. And so me and my sister were aware of these similarities and differences. So I think when my dad made this remark, this got amplified, and I think I just took that as truth. And as a 12, 13-year-old, you're very influenced by what your parents say to you, and I believed the lie, basically. And this grew into thoughts and a complex, and it developed into an eating disorder where I started to eat less. I wanted to be skinny, and I was very obsessed with my body. I grew into this very perfectionistic mindset where everything had to be, perfect and right. And also in school, I would just want to make sure I had the highest grades, and everything I did had to be perfect, which I thought was a good thing then, but, there's no way you can be perfect. I must also say that even then I can see that God has always been very faithful. And even though I didn't have a relationship with God then, he was always there. And I did not realize that then, but now looking back, I really do see that he always tried to keep me on the right path. He always tried to keep me in his ways. That also shows how gracious and merciful God is, that even though I was not a believer, I was not saved, I was, just in the world, he still, chose to help me and steer me on the right track. And I see that he does that he tries to help every soul. He wants to help everybody, but it's up to us to hear that calling and hear that see that he's actually trying to help us. So I did see this manifest in the fact that in that period that I was dealing with this growing eating disorder, I remember a friend of ours in high school, he asked us to tag along with a athletic training. I think we were around 15, 16 years old. And we were like, yeah, sure. I mean, we love sports. We love to exercise, so why not? And me and my sister attended this trial training run at a track and field club. And yeah, we did a training and we absolutely loved it. We adored the training. It was something very liberating about running and just being free and just expressing yourself in that way. And I guess it's also in our blood. We are half Jamaican. So I guess that was just a perfect fit. And we got enrolled very, very fast, and we were accepted in the group very warmly. And the trainer at the time, he took us in and he basically just trained us. And we quickly enrolled into competitions, regional competitions, national competitions. And yeah, we had a blast. We enjoyed it. And I can see that really has been that really saved me in that time, because I was dealing with a eating disorder. But because I now had these very intense, tough trainings, I was forced to kind of eat well and eat, have a protein-rich diet, have a carb-rich diet in order to have enough energy to be able to do those trainings and do those competitions. And there was a lot of discipline involved, and I already had a very disciplined and perfectionistic mindset, so that just really meshed well. And so I had a new focus, I had a new goal. I didn't have, that obsessive thing with my eating anymore, because now I had a new focus. So that really helped me. And I can say that me and my sister have always bonded through certain activities through our lives, and athletics is one of them. We really bonded through that. We did do different disciplines. So she did a bit longer distances. She did 200 and 400 meter runs. I did the shorter distances, 100 and 200 meters. But that did mean that we could still train together and challenge each other. And so there was never a really like a toxic competitive energy. There was always a loving energy between us, that we always wanted both of us to excel and do well. And I really admire that about us, because I know a lot of twins that there is that competitive spirit. But with me and my sisters, it had always been a loving dynamic. So yeah, we did this for 2 years. We did well, we did competitions, and we really grew into this sport that we really loved. And our plan was to do this for a while and see how far we could go, how far we could push this in combination with working and studying at the time. I think we were just in high school and now going into our bachelor studies. Unfortunately, though, this had to come to an end. Basically, this was not our own decision to stop, but we had to stop because there was an incident that happened between me and the trainer. Basically, the trainer overstepped some boundaries, and there were forms of sexual intimidation and sexual harassment. I did inform the head of that club about the incident, and I told them what happened, and I showed them the text messages, the very inappropriate text messages that I was receiving from my coach, my trainer. And basically, just to sum it up, they didn't take me seriously. They didn't think that what I had to say wasn't serious enough for them to take it on as a case that I would further investigate in. And so, yeah, they basically decided not to do anything with the situation and just to brush it aside. And I was at this time, I believe I would have been 16, maybe even older, maybe 17. And I just remember feeling so unheard. I felt so hurt. I felt not taken seriously. And, there's already a lot of shame in the topic of, sexual assault or intimidation or harassment. As a young girl or young woman, it's already a very difficult topic to talk openly about. And me being 16, 17 and opening up about this and then not being heard, yeah, that really did hurt my feelings, and that was painful. There's a lot of shame also involved in this topic, and that's why I really feel strongly to share this. And this is very hard for me to share, like it's not easy, but I know there's victory in sharing this, and I know that, and I pray and hope that, girls and women watching this that may have gone through similar situations, I hope this will encourage you and strengthen you to open up about it and talk to someone about it, because this has a big impact on someone's life. It's a taboo. I think this is something that's not talked about enough. I think, and I believe a lot of young women and girls, but also boys and men go through this, but don't talk about it because I just feel like, yeah, it's just part of life, or they just see it as something that is just not talked about, and so they just brush it aside or tuck it away. But it has such a big impact on people's lives, and it can be very destructive. It can have a big impact on how you perceive relationships and how you go about relationships when you're older. It really destroys your trust in people. So I hope that this helps by sharing this. And I hope this can encourage someone else to open up about it as well. It happens a lot within the sports world, and it's just embedded in the culture of that world, and it's not right. It should be talked about a lot more, and people should open up about it. So this was not easy, but basically because the club did not want to take this situation seriously, I basically said, well, if you guys don't take this seriously and really further investigate this, then I'll leave. And that's basically what the decision was. I told my parents what happened. They got involved, and yeah, we all decided we're not going to stay at a club that, does not regard the safety of those young girls as a high priority. And so we left. This was difficult because we were just growing in our athletic career. We were just getting warmed up, let's say. We were very young still, And not only that, athletics became a very big part of our lives. We had now friendships that were built there. We even had actually a very close relationship with our coach and our trainer. And so he also really, really broke my trust in that area, because I trusted him. He was someone that I looked up to. I knew his wife and his children. And so this was heartbreaking when it actually happened. Yeah, so that world kind of fell apart. We couldn't train there anymore. We couldn't really be a part of that club anymore. So we stopped, and me and my sister, yeah, as disciplined and motivated, and, we loved sports. So we quickly just found a new way to fill that hole. We enrolled into fitness. We got into fitness classes. We attended a gym, enrolled there, and we kind of like rolled in there very easily. We made friends and got, good connections, and we got spotted by a few trainers there, a few personal trainers there, and, they said, wow, you guys are very athletic. You guys could maybe be teachers here. So we quickly enrolled in doing some trial teaching sessions, and that went really well. And in the course of, from 19, we were 19 around this time, until I think I was about 22, 23, we taught fitness classes. And in those years, I became a licensed personal trainer. I did grit, which is a high intensity interval training. I did power trainings. I taught dance classes, hip hop and dance hall and all that stuff. I became also later on a yoga instructor, which I will also go deeper into later on. So yeah, a new world opened for us, and we were 19, so we were still very young, and this world was opening up to us of the fitness world. And so yeah, we our network really started to grow. We had a lot of new connections, and this was a time of thriving. I felt like, we were really everywhere, teaching in different places, and discovering different cities and teaching all over, meeting so many new people. And yeah, this was also a time where I started to go out more, started to party a bit more, started to find, social settings and social interaction very important. This was also a time in my life where I was also not really doing well with my mom. I was still living at home, but we were really butting heads a lot. And I was just feeling something in my spirit told me, yeah, it's time to just move out and do my own thing. And so I moved out when I was 20. I found a studio apartment nearby my mother's house. And I quickly moved out. And I think moving out, it just gave me a sense of freedom, a sense of, oh, I can do everything that I want. And that is all great. But I think I can now see that when you're that young, and there's a reason why the parents discipline you, and there's a reason why, it's good to stay home as long as you can, because that's really the groundwork. And looking back, it was not an easy time living on my own. I remember I had to pay rent. I was still studying a bachelor's. I was, teaching at the gym. So money was short. So I was working 2-3 jobs, working at nightclubs and selling drinks behind the bar at night. So these were not easy years, and I was just doing the best that I could. So I was going out a lot. This was also the time that I started to date and started to have, those kind of interactions. And I think, looking back, I think I also in that time was very, I felt empty. I was not whole. I had this void in me. I still struggled with the fact that my dad was not always around. And I think this manifested in me trying to find love in different places, so I was getting into situationships and relationships and dating here and there, but it never really worked out. It was always very short term. It always ended very prematurely. It was very hard for me to have relationships for some reason, and that also just made it even more difficult for me to cope with this void that I was feeling. I was so longing for love. I was so longing for peace and joy and happiness, and I just was not getting that from those from those situations. And so I think this kind of like created this search with this inner search in trying to find out what is causing this void. Why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel empty? And how do I feel it? What is the thing that's going to help me feel fulfilled and happy? And so I think that's when that kind of like started. So yeah, this was a time that I was going out, partying, going to festivals. I think this was also the time that I started to experiment a lot more with alcohol. I did also experiment with synthetic drugs, so ecstasy, mollies, cocaine. Yeah, this was a time that I was just willing to try it all, because again, I was still searching for a deeper meaning. I was searching for a deeper spiritual meaning to my life. I still had this void, so I was willing to fill it with anything that was seemingly interesting at that time. And again, I was young, 20, 21 years old. And I had this spirit of rebellion. I in that moment, in that time, I just thought, yes, I can just do anything that I want, and I'm young, and so why not? And that was my reasoning behind it. Just do it, just have fun. But I can really see that in the end, this did not help at all. If anything, it made it all worse. I remember after a time of experimenting with synthetic drugs, afterwards I would just feel so low, so extremely low. I had even a period of from 6 to 9 months that I dealt with anxiety attacks, with panic attacks, and I did suffer from a depression in that time as well, as a result of using those drugs. And it was also something that I was ashamed of, because in a way, growing up in the Netherlands, it's very normal to use synthetic drugs recreationally, just for fun at a festival. So you just go along with that and you just feel like, yeah, everyone's doing it, so why not? And that's not a good thing. I mean, looking back, that was a very dark place at that time. And so this was a very difficult period. I just remember feeling so low and feeling so confused and feeling like, okay, but this is definitely not the answer. This is definitely not helping my soul, my spirit. And yeah, so in this time, living on my own, trying to, pay my rent, trying to finish my studies, working 2, 3 jobs, trying to make it work in relationships and partying in the weekends. My life was in a way so chaotic and so busy, and I was feeling like more and more lonely and sad and empty. And I remember in this moment, there was an evening where I did just cry out to God. I did in that moment. Over the years, I always believed in God. I always believed in a higher power and a creator. I just did not know how to have a relationship with him. I did not know what that would look like. I didn't know what that meant. But in that moment of desperation, in that moment of sadness and just utter despair, I just was willing to just open myself up to hear from God, to hear from him and ask him to help me. And so this was a prayer out of desperation. I don't think it was even really a prayer, if you can call it that. It was just me shouting up and looking above and saying, God, please help me. Like, I don't want to live like this anymore. I feel stuck. I feel confused. I feel sad and empty. And I don't want to feel like this anymore. And I was just crying. I was just so sad. And in that moment, nothing happened. Days after, also nothing happened. I didn't hear anything. So I kind of left that for what it was. So I think now getting into like the ages of 22, 23, this really was a time in my life where I was really still trying to find a deeper meaning into my life. Who am I? What is my purpose? How do I find fulfillment? Why am I here? What's the whole purpose of life? Like, I was asking myself these questions and I really wanted to have answers. I was desperate and hungry for answers because I just thought, this can't be it. It can't be it just to work a 9-to-5 job, pay the bills, and this can't be it. And I was just I was lacking something. So I went on this search. I tried to find answers and I quickly dove into New Age practices. So yeah, deeper into spirituality. I read about Buddhism, about Hinduism. I was really into, I think I also became a yoga instructor in that time. So I was really into yoga, meditation, breath work, energies and all that. I also remember just being very into astrology, so really reading a lot about my horoscope and how that can help me, know what to do, not what to do. They tell you, based on your horoscope, what month you will be prosperous and what month you wouldn't be prosperous and all those things. And I was really deep into that. I was even mapping out what kind of relationship I should be in based on my, horoscope and star sign. That was really what I was into, and I was just all in it. I was into crystals. I would get those crystals because it would enhance my femininity. It would help me be more assertive or whatnot. And yeah, so I was deep into it. I was into moon cycles. I was tracking my cycle, and it would link with the moon, and it would tell me, it would explain how I would be feeling because the moon this and the moon that. So yeah, I was deep in it. And it's funny when you're dabbling into those practices because you tell yourself that it's working. You tell yourself, yeah, I'm getting answers. Yeah, this is helping. But the funny thing is, if it's helping, why did I find myself trying all those different things, trying all those different practices? But yeah, I was on a search and I was desperate. I was in a place where I was longing to just be away of my hometown. I'd lived in the Netherlands, until since I was 4, and I just felt this need of just leaving, of just being in a different environment, challenging myself in that way, opening up my horizon, and maybe getting more answers that I was hoping to get by just going. So I decided to enroll into a course to study English linguistics. And this course I took in Florence, Italy. So yeah, I basically enrolled, I saved up the money, and I up and left. I went to Italy to do the course. It was a very fast course, just a month. And I passed that course with high grades, and I was ready to be a certified English teacher. And I got a job offered in Milan like just a week after I finished my, maybe even the same week that I finished my studies. And so I was headed to Milan. Now, it's important to say that in the months leading up to me moving to Italy, I was traveling a lot in that time. Before I moved to Italy, so I went to Italy back and forth a lot before actually making the commitment to go there and study. And in that time of going back and forth to Italy, I did meet someone, and it was a long distance, let's say, situationship, because yeah, looking back, I can't really call it a relationship. It was in my eyes, but it wasn't in his. So let's call it a situationship. But there was definitely also a friendship there. And, you know, we always stayed in contact, and he would help me a lot in that time when I was trying to get my feet on the ground and starting my life in Italy. So yeah, when I got the job offer in Milan, he was living in a small city not far from Milan. And because I didn't have a house of my own yet or a place to stay, he really helped me get my feet on the ground in that period of just starting my life there. So he was of a big help, and you know, there was definitely a friendship there in that sense. But for me, there was definitely also a romantic aspect. I did have feelings for the guy, and I did really long and hope for something that was deeper or more meaningful. And I think I told myself that, you know, now me being here, this could maybe help get me more answers and see if this is going anywhere. And so yeah, he is a Muslim. He's from Iran, and he has been living in Italy for a long time. And so he knew the culture and the language really well, which helped me. And at the same time, because he is a Muslim, yeah, his faith and his religion did have a very big impact on me. Like, I did really see, like, okay, wow, so God is, you know, your God, Allah, is very important to you. And this did really invoke questions that I had about my relationship with God. And so that kind of did start to grow again. Like, okay, so who is this God, and how do I get to know God? How do I form a relationship with God? And I guess that grew. I remember doing a Ramadan fast with him for the first time, and that was spiritually so yeah, it opened up my eyes to so much more. There's so much more depth, there's so much more to this life, you know. There's such a big spiritual realm that I just was not aware of, and there's so much more to gain, and that really opened my eyes to a lot. So yeah, I remember also praying for the first time. I didn't know how to pray, but I just thought, okay, I'll just you know, get on my knees and just say whatever's on my heart. And in this moment, my heart posture was different. Now, remember, when I prayed the first time out of desperation, it was out of a selfish intent. I just wanted God to take that pain away, that emptiness away, that void away. And he didn't answer. But this time, my heart posture was different. This time, I just wanted a relationship with God. I just wanted to get to know God. I wanted to have a deeper meaning to my life. And I thought maybe I can get those answers by having a relationship with my Creator. And I prayed and I asked God, you know, God, here I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this, but I want to get to know you. I want to encounter you. I want a relationship with you. And, you know, as soon as I was done praying this first prayer, I felt this sense of warmth come over me, this sense of peace. I've never felt anything like that before. It was so spiritual. I can't describe it any other way, but I felt a presence. I felt something, and I thought, okay, God has responded. And this started the journey of me wanting to know God. I was obsessed. I really wanted to know who this God was and how I could have a deeper relationship with him. The funny thing is, in this time, my sister, back at home in Holland, she was on fire for Christ. She was saved a few years before, I believe. And yeah, she was on fire for Christ, and I did really see the transformation that she was going through in that time. I could see the transformation that really was starting in her life. She was becoming a very different woman through Christ, and I could see the influence that it had. But I was just not there yet. Like, I was still trying to find God in my own way. But I did acknowledge that Jesus Christ had a big, profound impact on my sister's life in a positive way. And so I was struggling with this because on one end I had my ex talking to me about Islam and, you know, their principles and foundations, and I had my sister that was telling me about Christ and about, you know, the Christian values and about grace, about love, about the Holy Spirit, about the Holy Trinity. And I was quickly seeing that it was not corresponding. There were complete differences between Islam and between Christianity. And I just remember being in the middle, like, I don't know what the truth is, but I do believe there's only one objective truth. There can't be multiple truths. And that was difficult because I was in a relationship with someone, and I had my sister. Like, they're two people that I cherished and had a very close relationship with. And so I really found it important what their values were. And I just did not know now which direction to go in. And I remember them being on the phone. I would be on the phone with my sister, and he would overhear me talking to my sister about Christ. And he would just walk in and start a full-on discussion about Islam and why Christianity is false, and on and on and on. And I think those discussions did really help me just be very alert, be very aware of, okay, but what do I believe to be true? What can I find? What can God reveal to me about the truth? And so I did not judge. I did not say you're right, you're wrong. I just decided, you know what? God will give me that revelation in my own time. He will tell me when the time is right, what the truth is, and he will reveal that to me. I really believe that in that moment, that he would reveal that to me. To just kind of like sum that up, me and the Muslim did not work out. We quickly learned that we were so very different. And not only that, I had a very different perception of the whole relationship as he did. I just thought that we were in a very committed relationship, and to him it was that was just not the case. And yeah, it's very hard to then have a solid foundation when that's not corresponding. And so I decided that I couldn't stay there any longer. And so I did still not have a place of my own yet. I was working 40 hours as an English teacher, did not have a place, but I just decided I can't stay here. So I remember packing my bags, grabbing all my belongings, and being ready to just leave. And again, God is so faithful, because in that moment, a friend contacted me. I was in contact with a friend, and I told him the situation, and he had a lot of connections in Italy and in Milan. And he actually knew a friend that had an apartment in Milan. It was a family, and they had a spare bedroom that I could stay as long as I needed to until I could find my own place. And so, yeah, I scheduled an appointment with the lady, the woman that owned the house and owned the bedroom. I just scheduled an appointment with her just to meet her, just to see how it feels. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. I'll take the room. And yeah, so again, I didn't see it then, but I can really see that God was really there. He was present. He was helping me. He was guiding me. He was protecting me. And he was really trying to keep me on that track. So I remember packing my bags, leaving, taking that train to Milan with all my belongings, arriving at the apartment. And yeah, mind you, in this moment, it sounds like I gained something, and I really did. It was a blessing that I found the bedroom, but inside I was absolutely broken. I'm away of my family and friends. I'm in Italy, you know, trying to find my place, struggling with the language. I don't know anyone besides the ex now that I have now left. So I know absolutely no one in the country. Feeling very alone, feeling heartbroken, and just my heart is torn because the relationship did not um, did not last. It did not work out, and I really did see something long term with this guy. So I was completely heartbroken. I felt alone and afraid of the future. I did not know what the future held for me in Italy, but I just knew I had this bedroom, and I went with that, and I could just be there, you know, get my feet on the ground, get my things together, and then figure out my next move. And I remember going there and arriving at the apartment and just opening my bedroom, and I just broke down. I fell onto my knees and I started crying because I felt so grateful. I felt free. I felt like I made the right decision of leaving. I have now a little bedroom to myself. It was a very simple bedroom, just a single bed. It had a balcony and it had an ensuite bathroom, so that was just absolutely wonderful. And the fact that I could stay there as long as I needed was just what I needed, just to breathe and just figure out my next plan. And that moment really humbled me. It really humbled me, because it made me realize that I don't have much right now, but I am so happy that I have this bedroom. And I remember calling my sister and telling her about, you know, the whole day and how everything went, and just being now in the bedroom and being happy to be somewhere safe for now. And yeah, I believe that God really took that moment. And I remember my sister telling me that, you know, it's in those moments where you are able to humble yourself, that God is able to then reach you or contact you. So I do believe that my heart posture was that I was so humbled, and I was so grateful for what I had, for the small things that I had. So I believe that God took that moment and he wanted to contact me. He wanted to communicate with me. So he spoke through my sister, and I gotta read it out. So he spoke in that moment through my sister to me, and he said, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I am the God of Isaac, Abraham, and Jacob. This is the same God that spoke to Moses, and he still speaks, and he has a big plan for your life. Ijahé, he has spoken your life to existence through your name. You will be an example for many, a leader, but great and true leaders must go through hardships, trials, and storms, and through a lonely desert like Moses went through. But it brought him to his purpose, to his fulfillment, and that just gave me so much courage. Not only that, but I felt God. And it felt like I had a sense of purpose. I had a sense of direction now. And I knew that God was speaking to me. God was trying to contact me. God wanted to get to know me, and I wanted to get to know him. And so this really started the journey of me diving into God's kingdom. I, downloaded the Bible, started to read the Bible for myself. I started to dive into teachings by Miles Monroe and Derek Prince and many others. And I just started to learn about the Bible for myself. I started to learn about Jesus Christ and what he did on the cross. And that was not easy for me to understand. I did struggle a lot with the Jesus Christ aspect of it all. But wow, once I got it, it was like a bomb exploded in my mind. I was like, wow, God is so merciful that he gave up his only son for all us sinners, so we could be saved, so we could have eternal life with him in heaven. Now, there is no bigger sacrifice than that. And that just, it was, yeah, my life has absolutely been like incredible ever since. And in that moment, I fasted and prayed with my sister in those moments when I came back. I forgot to mention in this time, I didn't stay long in Italy. COVID hit. And I think the north of Italy was one of the first European countries where the numbers were rising. And so the country was going into lockdown, and I decided to leave before the lockdown would be enforced. And yeah, I moved back home to Holland. I stayed with my sister for a few months. Starting to get my feet on the ground again, because I had no job, I had no place of my own. And in that time, in those COVID months, yeah, I just went all into those teachings, and I read the Bible, and I really got to know God on a deeper level. I got to know Jesus, and you know, I searched in all the places. I went into Islam, into Judaism, into Hinduism, Buddhism, New Age practices. The enemy has so many practices that will be deceiving and that you will think will give you answers, because he gives you a little bit of truth mixed with lies, but enough truth to keep you hungry for more. And oh, let's try this, let's try that, let's try ayahuasca, let's try this and that. And I can say it's not the answer. Jesus Christ is what you're looking for, and is what you have longed for all your life. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one gets to the Father except through me. Jesus Christ is the only medium. He's the only way to the supernatural or the spiritual realm. And so this has been a crazy but wonderful and beautiful journey. I am a child of God. I have found my true identity in Christ. The void that I had has been filled, and it's an ongoing process. You know, God is a God of process, so I'm not there in one step. It's definitely a process, and a hard one. But it's wonderful. I was saved and I got baptized in August of 2021. That's when I really gave my life to Christ. Yeah, and the years after, 1 year after I graduated from my master's, I met my now partner, and he also gave his life to Christ this year, September of 2023. Like, God is so good. He is so faithful. And he continues to move. He continues to move within my family. You know, my mother has also been saved, and I hope and pray that the rest of my family will be saved as well. And I hope when they watch this video that some part of this video will touch their heart. And I hope this will encourage them to get to know God for themselves. So I really want to ask and pray that if you're not sure about your life, if you want to know God, if you are a truth seeker like I was, and I think we all are, looking for truth, if you are a truth seeker, then I will ask you, go home, sit on your bed, and just call out to whatever you want to call it, the creator, the universe, whatever you call your God. And I can guarantee, if you ask for the truth, then you will receive the truth, and God will answer. God is a God of process, so he's still working on me. And I have been also delivered the last year from a lot of unclean spirits. You know, it's important to note that even when you are saved, even though you are now walking with Christ, you can imagine that when you are living in sin and when you are exposed to the world and the darkness, a lot of traumas do like just stay with you. A lot of, you know, self-protection mechanisms are developed. There are a lot of unclean spirits that you're dealing with, yokes and strongholds that have been, you know, gripping you and chaining you for a long time in your life. And those have to be broken. You need to be delivered from those spirits. This does not just automatically go away. You can be delivered in the moment that you give yourself to Christ, but there is still need of deliverance and healing, and that has been what God has been working on in my life. He has delivered me from a lot of unclean spirits. You know, he's delivered me from the spirit of witchcraft, spirit of anxiety, depression, of unworthiness, shame, of guilt, and so much more. And it's an ongoing process. Like I said, like I still need to renounce and rebuke those spirits on a daily basis, because, you know, I've been operating in a certain way for many years, and, you know, we are humans and we love habits, so we often fall back into our habits. And so I need to repent and confess daily. And I want to say, as a Christian, that's what your lifestyle should be about. Even if you're not a Christian, repent and see that you are a human, and that you make mistakes. You live a sinful life, and we all live a sinful life, but you could have eternal life. You can be a new creation in Christ, and it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful what God will do in your life, and I'm so excited to see what God can do in your life. So yeah, God instilled it in my heart that it was time to share this testimony. I hope that this testimony will bless you. I hope that it touches you in some way. I hope that this is an invitation for you to make contact with God, just pray to God, and start that journey for yourself. All I can say is that I was lost, and now I am found. I have my true spiritual father for eternity, and that is something that nothing in this world can give. Nothing in this world can satisfy that. Yeah, this was my testimony. God bless you, and thank you for watching.